We treated this engine with Polytron. Absolutely amazing. Let's get the camera really close. Look how filthy, look how dirty, look how contaminated the valve train is. And it's still running.
And nothing drops the temperature like Polytron. A small amount of Polytron really saves us a lot of money on the road.
And we're here to show you how Polytron can protect your engine in the most severe of all cold starts.
Nothing compares to Polytron.
I've been in this business for a long time. I've never seen a product work like this before.
We can get over 750 runs out of this, and that's 10 times the normal use. It carries it to the filter. So you're going to be amazed at what you're going to see inside those filters. We're going to show you some filters with Polytron in them. You're not going to see those deposits. It's unbelievable when we...
The salt water is fouling the valve train. Salt water is getting inside this engine and it's running beautifully. Polytron has protected this engine from salt water. Unbelievable! Unbelievable! Imagine driving your car off-road through desert sand dunes and driving through a salty sea, then driving home in a blizzard after being buried overnight in a mountain of snow. Would your engine keep running? This car survived all three extremes after being treated with Polytron, the first oil treatment of the 21st century that gives you the power to push your engine to the limit. Even a catastrophic oil loss won't stop this car from reaching its destination. But wait, Polytron is not only for extreme driving conditions, it provides increased power and overall performance as well. See how Polytron increases engine torque, horsepower, and gas mileage. See how Polytron reduces engine temperature and virtually eliminates wear. And see how independent testing facilities scientifically verified Polytron's unmatched lubricating abilities. So sit down, buckle up, and watch as you discover a remarkable oil treatment that will keep your old engine running and your new engine performing for years to come. In this remote desert, there are miles and miles of desolate sand dunes. It's the perfect place for an extreme test of Polytron's lubricating ability. We've come to the desert to punish this engine. We're removing the valve cover, which is going to expose the valve train, which is the top part of the engine. Engine on. Now watch as we create one of the worst sandstorms imaginable. Fans on. Look as the sand is engulfing this engine. It's getting into the valves. It's getting into the valve train, but the engine is still working. Unbelievable. Remember, we treated this engine with Polytron. Absolutely amazing. Let's get the camera really close. Look how filthy, look how dirty, look how contaminated the valve train is. And it's still running. I don't know how many pounds of sand has entered this engine, but it's unbelievable. You gotta see this. You gotta see this. Fans off. Fans off. Fans off. Fans off. Unbelievable. Take a look at this engine. Look at how well this engine is running. Polytron has really done the job. Absolutely amazing. But wait, we're not finished. We then removed the oil pan to expose the crankshaft, and we restarted the car. We then drove the car to the edge of an 800-foot sand dune, and off it goes. This car is literally being pounded by sand as it drives. The engine is under heavy load, but it's performing remarkably well. Remember, this car's engine has already survived a blistering sandstorm. The car is making another pass. The driver is so confident that he's going for another run down the dunes. Look at the car kick up sand. The bumper is off. The car hit with such force that the bumper ripped away, and the car is still driving. The driver finally pulls in to stop after making 12 runs down the dunes. Now, it's time to reveal the effects the sand has had on the crankshaft. Look, the car is still running. After pounds and pounds of sand contaminated the engine, it still runs. That's the power of Polytron. Misserville is a 30-year veteran of racing who now competes in supercomp dragsters. He uses Polytron.
The reason why we use Polytron is because it prevents moisture from attacking them. It lubricates, and it also helps cool the motor.
Misserville races with a $10,000 394 cubic inch gasoline-powered engine. He credits Polytron for the engine's long-lasting performance.
Polytron keeps the temperature of the engine down. We've tested other oils and other additives, and nothing drops the temperature like Polytron. We're as much as 30 degrees below what we normally would run. In an 8-second run, this engine can go from 120 degrees to 250 degrees. We don't see that anymore with Polytron. It stays down in the 180, 200 degree range. And that's important. That makes the parts last a lot longer. The fatigue factor is greatly reduced. The street car runs very lean today. And I recommend Polytron because it keeps that motor cool and it keeps it lubricated at high temperatures. The mileage is unbelievable in a street car. It'll actually pick up mileage. I use it in my diesel truck. My diesel truck runs excellent with it, and it holds 20 quarts of oil. So a small amount of Polytron really saves us a lot of money on the road. We've used many products. Nothing compares to Polytron. All the claims that those other companies made, we've tried them. We know they don't work. We tried Polytron. We can show you the parts that come out of this engine, and they're absolutely perfect.
Back at the shop, Misserville takes his engine apart to show how well Polytron works to protect the engine.
Well, we removed the rod cap and look at the bearing. The wear has absolutely been eliminated because the break-in coating is still on the bearing. Look at this connecting rod journal. Look how polished it is. It's unbelievable. Normally, we would only get 75 runs out of this particular crankshaft, and we have over 350 runs in here. There's no reason to go any farther in disassembling this motor or even changing the bearings. We're going to go ahead and put this motor back together and keep Polytron in this thing because we can get over 750 runs out of this, and that's 10 times the normal use. Okay, we're taking a look at the inside of the cylinder wall. And you can see the original honing pattern inside the cylinder. You notice that the Polytron has left a mirror finished, and look how clean that cylinder wall is. We're going to take a piston out of the motor now. We've pushed it away from the crank, and you can take a look at the piston. Because the Polytron has polished the cylinder wall and the piston ring so well, it hasn't allowed any of the carbon from the combustion chamber to enter down into the engine's oiling system. And you can see how clean it is on the bottom of the piston here. Okay, well, we're looking at one of the valves now, and you can see that the Polytron has eliminated the wear on the top of the valve where the rocker arm hits. There's virtually no wear at all. Look at these rollers. They're absolutely at a mirror finish. There's virtually no wear taking place at all, and these rollers take a lot of force on top of the cam lobes. I'm really impressed. Normally you wouldn't be able to turn a crankshaft assembly like this, but with Polytron, look how easy this pistons, rods, connecting rod, and crank turn. It's unbelievable. Well, when we pull a filter off of a car even, or the dragster, we look for any carbon deposit, any small metal particles. Metal will kill engine bearings. We don't get that with Polytron. You see, oil lubricates, but it also suspends dirt. And it takes that dirt from the engine and carries it to the filter. So you're going to be amazed at what you're going to see inside those filters. We're going to show you some filters with Polytron in them. You're not going to see those deposits. It's unbelievable. Look at, there's no metal at all. And we can look again. There's no metal at all in the paper element. Look at that, perfectly clean. This with 10,000 miles on it with the Polytron is extremely clean. This here, with only 3,000 miles with just regular oil, is very dirty. And you can see the metal right here, see? Even over here, there. So with the Polytron, much better. Plus you get more than 3 times the distance. I've been an automotive instructor, a race car driver, and an engine builder for over 30 years. I've tested over 50 different products, and nothing compares to Polytron.
When motor oil gets cold, it gets thick. We're in sub-freezing temperatures. This is actual motor oil that's been out for a couple of hours. This is a dipstick. Now imagine this oil in your oil pan. This is what makes cold starts hard on your engine. When you start your car, the oil is so thick in the oil pan, it won't go up and lubricate your engine. That's why there's so much wear. That's why you need Polytron. we treated this car's engine with Polytron in preparation for an extreme lubrication test. In the dead of night, we parked the car, lifted the hood, and exposed the engine during a ferocious winter snowstorm to simulate a punishing cold start. As the driver prepares for a long, cold night inside the car, the snowstorm outside rages on. In no time, we are in blizzard conditions. In just hours, the snow begins to bury the car. The drifts are getting higher. The temperature continues to drop. Look how the freezing snow is pounding the car. As the blizzard continues, the engine is covered in snow and ice. Icicles now hang from the hood. We're here in blizzard conditions to show you how Polytron protects an engine. You may never be in conditions like this. Your car may never be in a snowstorm as powerful, as cold as this. But we're here to show you how Polytron can protect your engine in the most severe of all cold starts. It's now been over 8 hours, and the car is almost completely covered. All you can see is the car hood sticking up from the immense snow pile. Remember, there is still a driver in the car, prepared to start the engine. Now it's time to see if this car will cold start after having been parked in Arctic conditions for more than 10 hours. The driver is signaled to start the car. He turns the key. It starts. Listen to the driver.
Hey, just so you know, the engine just started. If you want to go ahead and show us that started, it just started.
Watch. You can see the exhaust rising into the cold air as the engine starts. The mountain of snow is so deep, the car must be pulled out. But wait, there's more. Look as the car pulls to a stop. As the snow is brushed away, you can see that the valve cover was removed, allowing snow and ice to contaminate the valve train and the engine block. This engine not only started, but it continues to run, even though the engine is filled with ice, snow, and water. And now, for the ultimate test, the car will drive away. Polytron has protected this car's exposed engine from an extreme winter storm, the likes most drivers will never see. We randomly selected vehicles with high mileage to test on a precision dynamometer. This machine will accurately diagnose an engine's horsepower. After Polytron oil and fuel treatment are poured into the truck, the engine is tested again. According to independent dyno technicians who verified the results, Polytron significantly increased horsepower. Professional smog checks prove that using Polytron will lower unhealthy pollutants and emissions. We went to a towing service to test vehicles before they were sold at auction. We asked for a car that had major emissions and blow-by problems. And did they deliver? As you can see, this car smokes. It would never be allowed to operate on city streets in this condition. We then asked the mechanic to pour Polytron into the engine and restart the motor. Again, it begins to smoke. But watch. As we time-lapse the photography over just 5 minutes, you can see the exhaust disappear right before your eyes. Polytron went to work immediately to eliminate the smoking problem.
That smoke was billowing out of that thing. You couldn't see the cars behind it. It was so thick. They put that Polytron in, and within minutes, the smoke was completely gone. It's unbelievable. It's something that I wouldn't have believed if I wouldn't have seen it with my own eyes.
Before, the car was just smoking like crazy. You couldn't have a hard time selling or sell it for not very much money. Now we'll probably get a lot more money for the vehicle itself. And I've been in this business for a long time, and I've never seen a product work like this before.
We traveled to San Felipe, Mexico, to the Sea of Cortez. In this extreme case, the salt water will flow to this parked car, where it will attack an exposed engine and contaminate the engine's oil system. Earlier in the day, we drove this car to the location. The engine was treated with Polytron, and it was running well and in good condition. We then removed the valve cover to expose the valve train. The oil was drained, and the oil pan was removed. Now, watch as the tides in the Sea of Cortez quickly move